Yo, 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 what's up? This is Gina Thompson, and you know I got soul.
I would like to start, if you don't mind. I love to hear the history, love to hear the stories. I mean, would you mind just starting? I was reading that you signed your first deal at a very young age, almost right out of high school. I mean, how did that even come together for you?
So basically, it is a long story, so I'll definitely try to, make it short as possible. So basically, it kind of started with, well, let me go here and say how I even got into the singing aspect of things.
Sure.
Would that be okay? All
Yeah,
right,
of
thank you.
course.
So basically, it started with me singing in the church. And I grew up in the church, of course. And I had two brothers at the time, one remaining, and he wanted to take me into a studio to see, how I would sound, doing solo stuff. So we went in, a friend of his had a studio. So we went over to his home and we recorded in his basement. And I remember doing it was Tracy Spencer, so long
Mm,
ago, my goodness,
wow.
Tracy Spencer. And I think one of them may have been even Shanice's song. But nevertheless, once my brother had heard my vocals, he was like, he really felt like, that I should try to do more singing. So in moving forward, my brother-in-law at the time and one of my cousins knew of Rodney Jerkins. So
Mm,
what had happened was they um, got me set up with Rodney so Rodney could hear me sing. So I rode to Rodney's house. And at that point, I sang in his living room. And right off the gate, when I sang, he was very, very interested in signing me to his company called Dark Child Productions.
yeah.
So I signed with him. We did pre-production right in his basement. And at the time I signed, I was about 20 years old. So yeah, shortly
Yeah.
after high school, 20 years old, I was actually getting ready to go to college. But with all of this happening, I ended up focusing more on a music career. So again, going back to I signed to his Dark Child production. We pre-recorded songs in the basement, and basically we really pre-recorded the whole album for the most part. And then after we had done three songs, his father, who was representing me as my manager at the time, took the first three songs and shot them around in New York. And within a matter of like probably a couple of weeks or so, we had got a couple of callbacks. And Reverend Jerkins is his name, my manager at the time, had said that Mercury Records with Polygram, that they were um, the ones that pretty much offered like the best deal.
Yeah.
So, and moving forward, we signed with Mercury, recorded the album in Manhattan, New York, and then we were just trying to decide on what first single we wanted to come out. So after getting a few ears involved, the A&R and assistant A&R and other people at the record company, the president and our CEO, everyone came to the conclusion of the things you do.
Right.
So, but they wanted it more of like a sound that kind of was popping at that time. Not to
Yeah.
say that the original wasn't, but they wanted something that was popping more at that time. So what they did was they decided to talk to Puff, first talk to us and ask us how we feel about having Puffy do the remix. Puffy, of course, we agreed. Puffy heard it and wanted to jump right on it. And like I said, around that time, that sound was kind of out.
Yeah.
So Puffy wanted to arrange the vocals, and so 112, myself, and Puffy, and Rodney, we collaborated, on more so myself and 112. We really collaborated on a melody, and they
Mm,
actually even had sang some backgrounds on that single. And when Puffy heard the finished product, he just, he put his spin on it as well. Rodney heard it, put his spin on it as well. And then it was like they felt like a rapper on there. So Puffy, of course, knew of Missy.
yeah.
Then Missy heard the album and she definitely wanted to get on it. So she got on the record, and then it kind of went from there. And that was in 96 at that time, summer of 96 when the song came out. So that's pretty much how my music career started. So I'll
Awesome.
leave the next questions up to you.
Yeah. We got a bit more to cover around this era. I mean, my question was to be, obviously you linked up with a young Darkchild, legendary producer, but around that time he wasn't as well known yet. He was first getting placements around that time. Obviously
Sure.
his work with like Mary J and Brandy would come after, a couple of years after, but
Yeah.
you got with him
Yeah.
early. He was on the, the intro to your album. I didn't even realize that you had signed with him, so that's pretty cool. So that was through like the family connection that you had a common person in common that knew him.
Yes, like I said, my brother-in-law at that time knew him, and a cousin of mine knew him as well. And actually, their family, the Jerkins, they knew my sister, one of my sisters, because I have several.
Yeah.
But she sings gospel, and they definitely was familiar with her. So knowing her, and they knew that she could sing, they made them become interested in it as well, and wanting to hear me sing. And my cousin, his name is Kenny Buckman. He's a producer, so he was in the music game as well. And actually, he still does his thing, but I believe he plays more for the church and stuff. And then my brother-in-law, the one that I was referencing, he too, he used to be with a gospel group, and he also was a singer and songwriter. So definitely surrounded by
Yeah.
music folks. And my brother that really kind of had me explore out there. He rapped at the time and was a writer himself. So,
Gotcha.
but yeah. Mm-hmm.
What was it like collaborating with a young Darkchild? I mean, what was it like in the studio? How did he? Obviously, your talent was undeniable. Vocally,
Oh,
such a beast. So it wasn't a surprise to know that he was interested in working with you. What was like the
um,
give and take, like working on Nobody Does It Better, the debut album?
for a while, honestly, it was such a shock to me
Yeah,
because, you know, I knew that I could sing, and I just was like, it was just, is this, it's so, just so surreal, like this is really happening. So as I began to like really, start working with him, the pre-production part was cool, but once we got to Manhattan and we
yeah,
started recording in the studio, I think that's when it really clicked to me like, oh my goodness, this is happening. And Rodney works so fast. He is, and he probably still does, but he works so fast, and he's such an acrobat with his what's the word I'm looking for, with his talent, with the way
Mhm.
he just collaborates and comes up with, and Missy's the same way, so it truly was a blessing to be able to have that experience and work with a producer so phenomenal first go round. And like I said, his father to be there, and even Rodney's brother Fred worked on that album as
Yeah,
well. And just it was a blessing. I can't give it any other word that is over that. It was a blessing, dream come true.
yeah,
And as well as me helping him, he most definitely helped me. So it kind of was like a hand in glove, so to speak. And I
right.
think that honestly, everyone that I did work with, on the project, um, we all had that cohesive touch. We really, really did. There's nobody on both my albums, that I can say I wasn't feeling. Of course, I was feeling everybody. It was such a
Yeah,
pleasure to work with everybody. And I learned a lot, let's put it that way. The importance of writing, you know, um, so it was a blessing. The music
right.
industry, of course, does have, its ups and downs. And
Yeah,
let me tell you, I definitely went through some things, but it's you live and you learn. You live
yeah,
and you learn.
absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, anyone can say whatever they want about Gina Thompson, but one thing, they can't take away from you is that the things you do is obviously one of the most recognizable R&B songs, the remix in 90s R&B. Like I was just actually, I put it on for my wife a few minutes before this interview, and I was like, I'm about to interview Gina Thompson. And she was like, she's not a big R&B fan. So I didn't expect her to really know too much, but I put the song on. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
she started grooving immediately.
Uh,
So it's like
okay.
you will always have that under your belt, that you have one of the biggest R&B, most recognizable songs, and we'll always love you for that. But just tell us, like, what was it like having that impactful song, that remix? I was just watching the video. with, the New York feel with Puffy and Biggie in it, and just in the summer, like what was it like having that big single out?
Like I said, I still always go back to a blessing. It was a dream come true. It was, you know, so thankful, appreciative of every moment of it. It felt, I mean, I felt like a star,
Yeah.
And just to know that people appreciated the song, and I was given it, or blessed with an opportunity to share what I have with others, and for people to be receptive. You're always going to have those that are not, but just to be received, off of that first single. Many people don't get that. So I didn't take that, and I still don't take that for granted. Like I said, the whole journey itself, it was a roller coaster,
Yeah.
ups and downs, but the more that and even 20 something years later, the more that I think about it all, I'm like, but it made me who I am today. And I'm very, very pleased and thankful for who I am today.
Yeah.
So, like I said, you live and you learn. I know, you heard me say that earlier, but overall the experience, I still wouldn't change it for anything. I'm thankful, again, for the good and the bad, but, it was amazing. It was to travel the world, to sing for fans, and to be appreciated, and being able to, share my story with others, or, being able to, make other people feel, the joy. It was just so amazing,
Right.
and prayerfully, if it's the Lord's will, yes, it is 20 something plus years later, but here I am opening up now, because I wouldn't for years, and telling my story, and prayerfully, better things will come, or more things will come in 2022. So stay tuned.
Absolutely. And I hope so. And I tell you, we were looking for you on social media for many, many years. Couldn't
Yeah.
find you. Glad to have connected with you now, after all these years, and happy to help you share your story and, connect with people again.
Thank you. Thank you so,
Absolutely.
so very much. Yeah.
So just moving the story along a bit more. So tell us about how you ended up signing with at Misty's label Goldmine after, to put out your second album, If You Only Knew. I know obviously she was on the remix to The Things You Do, but what was the circumstances that allowed you to sign to her label for that album?
Okay. So after The Things You Do did come out with Polygram, the industry does seem to go through some changes. And as I try to be very careful when I, speak upon, making moves and things of that nature, things just happened, and I had to just keep it moving for the most part. The record company was not trying to put out another single. And so I'm like, okay. And I hear that these things happen. I was for the life of me was so confused, and I just didn't understand what was going on. Again, so many things were said, many things were put out there. To make a long story short, like I said, I became unhappy and talked to my attorney, and I just said, let me move forward. Meanwhile, me and Missy, we did, begin to talk more. And so with that being said, our relationship, got tighter. And then what began to happen was, I guess Sylvia Rhone saw that, and others at Elektra. And so Missy was like, you know what, like, this is crazy. We got to keep it moving for you. So they wanted to sign me over at Elektra. So, timing was good. And so when I signed with Elektra, Missy, of course, being, executive producer, and I basically like co-executive producer, she was pretty much, she kind of gave me like the green light to just go ahead and do your thing. And I believe that more so happened because I think she wanted to be more hands-on, but what had happened was the fact that she was so busy at that time, and even prior to me signing, and having her own artist and having her own label, Goldmine, that I think what began to happen was she couldn't be in every place, you know, so she had to she had to prioritize and do her thing. And so she did, you know, so meanwhile, while she was out doing her thing, I was, you know, collaborating with my manager at that time on putting this record together. So we're finding producers, et cetera. And that the second album, to me, it was just so awesome, and another blessing. And so what happened was, every time that I did complete a song, you know, I would say, hey, Missy, this is what we have. And she would just be like, yay or nay. But for the most part, I kind of like, you know, did the album myself, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Because again, that she was so busy. So then, you know, once the album was completed, everyone had agreed on yada yada, or let me rephrase that. Majority had agreed on yada yada. Majority, not everyone. And Eric Roberson was the one who wrote yada yada.
Eric Roberson, wow. I didn't think I knew that. Yeah. He's a good friend of mine, actually.
Oh, he's awesome. Oh my God. I wish I could connect with that guy again. He wrote actually Yada Yada, and being that we're speaking of him, I might as well just say this real quickly as well. He actually helped me co-write and arrange 2 other songs on my album. Actually 3. I'm sorry, I'm leaving one out. Just put it like this. He was with Jazzy Jeff's camp. That's how I was introduced to him, through Jazzy Jeff's camp at the time. Let's just put it like that. Put it like this. Him and Jazzy Jeff's camp blessed that album as well. So they did a lot of great things. Ladies Anthem was a track that was on there that Eric also wrote. Wow. When I tell you, I thought that should have been the first single. That's where my heart was, Ladies Anthem, because I was like, this is a perfect song. You know, at that time, it would have really rocked, and we could have had a rapper on that. But you know what, Yada Yada, like I said, was the most chosen one. So nevertheless, after that album was completed, like I said, Yada Yada came out. We shot the video. And then it was like a repeat. And it was like, oh my God, is this deja vu? It was a repeat because the first single was put out. And then what are we going to do about a second single?
Yeah.
Then the same scenario happened where the album was shelved, you know, and then I started hearing Elektra's merging or folding or whatever the case may have been. At that point, I just became so numb. Yeah. And like, you know what, because I poured my heart out, don't get me wrong, on both albums. Yeah. But when I tell you every blood in my capillaries, and I always use that analogy, was poured into that second album, because I did a lot of writing. John B was on there. He and I did a duet. Montel Jordan's camp, Shep Crawford wrote for Deborah Cox, How Did You Get Here? Or How Did I Get Here? Nevertheless, he was on there. They had like, I think two tracks and an interlude. Then I had Beanie Siegel on there, and my cousin had did that track. And a friend of my son's father had was on there, and he did a really nice track. And the list goes on. You know, I even had my son on the album because I wrote a song about him, As Long As God Allows. And I had his voice on there in the intro and the exit part. So that album was so meaningful to me, and I put it together. So so when I was told that it was being shelved, I was so confused. And so I just became numb. I shut down, anger took over. And then that's where I started turning like really emotionally downward on a coaster. Because at that point in my life, I asked my attorney again. I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done. I don't know what's going on here. Maybe I'm just not liked. Maybe I don't know what to say or do anymore. And it was like trying to reach out to people. No one's returning your calls. Everyone's ghosts, you know. And then I felt abandoned. It was so hurtful. And then I went into a deep depression. And it gets really deep with me. It gets really, really deep. And I was just so over music. And then a few years later, I tried to do another project with the guy that owns the Laugh House. His name is Roderick. That didn't work out. And then that's when I really said, okay, another career.
Wow.
So with all that being said, fast forwarding, the depression did try to take my life. But God said he had other things in store. So here I am. I stand today as a registered nurse with a master's degree, who is still working. Thank you so very much. And I'm so very proud of it, who is working, beginning to work on, self and music again, because there are fans out there that do deserve, one, to hear my story. And I'm hoping that someone can learn from my story and just do what I feel, I'm so much more content in who I am. And like I said, this story could really go on, but for the most part, having a supportive husband, supportive family. I have 3 beautiful children. I have 2 beautiful grandchildren.
Wow.
Well, I'm putting it out there, right?
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, I'm just thankful to be able to speak to people like yourself again and share my story. Hopefully it's a testimony for somebody. And one of the biggest advice that I could give to anybody that's trying to get in this music industry is, listen, put your full trust in no man but God, one. Make sure you learn the business. Make sure you learn the business, and you got to get what's yours. You definitely have to get what's yours. You are a commodity. So a lot of times people don't quite grasp what that really means, but you're a commodity and everybody will drag at you and try to suck every penny out of you. But you got to keep your mind. You got to keep your soul. You got to keep yourself together. And again, I'm very spiritual, born and raised in the church. You have to let go and let God. You have to, because these battles, you can't fight them alone. And once I truly realized that and gave it all to him, like I said, I became so much more at peace, and he saved me. So that's my story. And like I said, beautiful. There's a lot more.
Yeah.
But, that's the gist of it.
Yeah.
Here I am today, and I'm thanking each and every one of my supporters, people that are out there still loving me, still keeping my dream alive, playing my record, supporting me, these interviews, hopefully more and more people will hear my story and then will continue to follow me more. And if not, they still be blessed,
Yeah. Well, I love hearing this story. First of all, thank you so much for sharing.
You're so welcome.
I need to cycle back a bit because I want to hear some more about If You Only Knew, the album, because I did have a chance to hear it. I thought it was an awesome progression from your debut. I totally heard, the growth in your music, and it was powerful. I got to share though, the first time I interviewed John B, it was about 10 years ago when I first met him. I let him know, listen, John, the songs you did on Gina Thompson's album, Calling You, Cool Out With You, and Up All Night, such amazing songs, that he had such high praise for you as well. So those are 3 amazing songs right there. I still listen to them to this day.
Thank you. If I could say this real quickly to you, and I kid you not just saying this because you've said that, those 3 songs, and John B, that whole experience, like I said, I love working with everyone, but that whole experience with John B was absolutely in a different pocket. And I loved, and I was so comfortable in that zone. And I said, man, even years later, I'm like, honestly, this may blow you off your seat, but that is the vibe that I love. I love that whole vibe. Like, can I wail and do this? Yeah. And that's, that's fine when you can, do this. Can I do riffs here and there? Yeah. But that, to me, that soulful vibe right there, I'm telling you, that is so me. That's why I said to my manager now, I'm like, listen, if John B and I could reunite and just do a couple of things together, I know in my heart that that would be a wonderful collaboration once again. You know what I mean? Like, it was so phenomenal. Mine's is calling you.
Yeah,
Oh,
love
oh
that
my
one.
goodness. Oh Lord. Yeah, but yeah, I totally get what you're saying about the John B tracks. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
absolutely. And then another thing you touched on, we were talking about Eric Roberson. So, and you mentioned DJ Jazzy Jeff's camp, and I got to share with you, I don't know if you're talking about A Touch of Jazz, his studio down there in Philly. Were you down there
Yeah,
to record, or
yeah,
because
that was
I'm a
it.
huge admirer of what he accomplished there.
Oh
I've
yeah.
talked to all the producers who came through there, the
Mhm.
artists who came there, obviously a few years after, you would have been down there. But I guess talk about some of the work you did down there in Philly at the studio there.
You said talk about some of that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So, like I, mentioned a little while ago, Eric Roberson, Eric Roberson slash Jazzy Jeff's camp at that time, they worked on, I think it was 4 songs on the album. And again, one of it was As Long as God Allows. I wrote that. I was missing my son so much, my
Yeah.
oldest son at the time. I was missing him so much. And then what happened was the song just kind of like melted in my frontal lobe so easily.
Uh-huh.
And Keith, I think he was the one who played the keyboard. He kind of helped me, with arranging, some of the lyrics for the most part. But I straight wrote the song lyrically, and we did that at Jazzy Jeff's spot. And
Uh-huh.
then, like I said, Yada Yada was another one. And of course, Missy, she recorded her portion wherever she was. I can't quite recall where she recorded her part, but Yada Yada was also done at Jazzy Jeff's camp. And like I said, Eric wrote that, arranged it and everything. And Take My Number Down, I wrote that song. But Eric did help do backgrounds on it and
Mm-hmm.
definitely helped or do some arrangement. And then Ladies Anthem was the one that Eric Roberson wrote. And like I said, that should have been the first single.
How did you
So
sorry to interrupt, but how did you end up
no,
there? I'm just curious now to hear the story of like, how did you get connected with that
to
crew down
Jazzy
there?
Jeff's camp. So
Yeah.
my manager at the time, he had a connection with Jazzy Jeff. I think he knew one of his producers. And
Mm.
so he was like, G, called me G at the time. He was like, how do you feel about having, or listening to some of the tracks that Jazzy Jeff Camp has? And, and I'm like, okay, that Jazzy Jeff Camp have. And I said, absolutely, of course I'm open to that, because I was trying to really get a variety of, things on the album anyway. So I was like, okay, yeah, sure. So then he made a couple calls, spoke to my A&R at the label, who was Marilyn Bob at the time. And we went from there, and like I said, when Missy heard the song, she was like, because of course she had to give the final approval over
Yeah.
everything. She was like, yeah, they're definitely winners, all of their tracks.
Right.
So that's how that journey came about.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah.
And then also, can you talk about like during that period of time? I know you mentioned that you didn't get a lot of time with Missy on the album. It was kind of sending back and forth, but from the opportunities you had in your career in the studio with Missy and working with her and collaborating with her, can you share like the genius you experienced of being with her and working with her?
Yeah, you pretty much said it, a genius.
Yeah.
Because she's another one. Like I said, the same thing with Rodney Jerkins. She truly is so gifted. The way she just comes to get this whole her own thing. It's the way she writes, her arrangements, what she hears, her dances. She just has this mind that is like one of a kind. And seeing how she comes together and delivers, phenomenal, absolutely amazing. So like I said, it truly was a blessing, because Rodney is fairly pretty much the same way in his own world, and she does what she does in her own world. But both of them are, phenomenal writers, producers. They have great ears, arrangements, all of the above.
Right.
So the times that was in the studio, it wasn't always when we were working on our stuff. There was one time where her and Timberland was in the studio and they were working on some stuff for Aaliyah. bless her soul. There were a couple other times where she was working on stuff for 702. And then there was even a time that she wanted me to go in the studio, and I referenced this song that Aaliyah did end up using and singing. And I think the name of it is Can I Talk to You? I think that's the name of it. It didn't really get the buzz like Aaliyah's other songs, but I've heard it several times on the radio.
Mm.
So again, like even when I did that reference track for her, I think Missy wrote that song in probably like 30 minutes.
Wow.
So she's super duper fast, super duper fast. She really is. But again, such an amazing spirit. I even met her mother. Her mother is just as beautiful and as amazing as she is. So, you know, it's like I said, the experience in the studios was awesome. It just was unfortunate, you know, what had happened with both albums, and, you know, just so much has happened. And both of them, like Rodney and Missy, I kind of feel like with the same situation kind of happened with both, meaning both of them blew up so quickly.
Yeah.
And work was just coming at them. And I get it. You gotta feed your family. I totally get it. And, you know, you don't want as many headaches. I mean, you don't want the headaches if you don't have to have them. And unfortunately, I feel like I just got caught in the midst of two tornadoes, you know, and, you know, it was unfortunate, but again, I am who I am today, and everybody that I, you know, cross paths with, I am who I am today, and I'm okay with that.
Awesome. I love that outlook. You know, before we bring it up to date a bit more and talk about, you know, what you're going to be currently working on, I got to mention another song you're a part of, and that's one of the songs you have with MC Light, It's All Yours. I really like that one.
Well, I'm going to be honest, there's stuff out there that I probably remember.
Yeah, you have to remember that one. I was a big fan of Neptune's production team, so I of course remember that one and loved your part on that one.
Bless your heart. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So I guess kind of taking things, you know, to where we're at now, you did talk a bit about it, but how did you really find the strength after all you've been through, after all the setbacks you had, the heartbreak of giving your all to music and just not having it coming out or being appreciated and being let down? Like, how did you find the strength to come back to want to even do it again?
Honestly, and you've already heard me say this, it's nobody but God. You know, that's my being right there, like my upper being, and it's nobody but him. And I don't doubt that it was nobody else. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I know that it was him that brought me through everything that I've gone through. His mercy, his grace, keeping me. And like I said, God brought a wonderful man in my life, my husband. And he honestly came in my life when I was so broken, so broken. I mean, I was so broken. And for that man to be there for me during those broken moments and stay with me, even when I tried to push him away, he too is a reason that I'm standing.
It's amazing.
You know? And of course, my children. So when you ask that question, like I said, ultimately, it is God. He's the one that has kept me. And God will put people in your path that can help you. And that's just what he did for me. And I had to dig deep within myself and say, you know what, Gina? The good Lord gave you this gift. Not those people you think that let you down. He gave it to you. So, girl, you better go out there and support your fans and do what you need to do and do what you love to do. It was a lot of reconstruction. Trust me when I tell you, it was so much. It was a humbling experience. You hear me? Because coming from that world, and then now you're going back to a regular day job.
Yeah.
What? And then to hear the people talk, you hear them talking. but I just kept on walking, and I just kept on walking. And it was like, I just was getting just beatings in my back, and people was just, it was horrific. It was so depressing, but here I am. Today I stand,
Yeah.
and I'm thankful to God.
I love it. I love it. We have a real, unfortunately, problem, here in the US. I've always found that R&B artists, especially from the 90s, many who are no longer played on mainstream outlets, or maybe aren't recording, are treated very poorly. They're looked at like they're washed up or fell off, and
Yeah,
that's a terrible way to treat artists who've given us so much and given us music and anthems that we still love. And I've
yeah,
always tried to change that, people's attitude towards that, and hopefully you're able to not get too much of that, and get beyond that and not take it seriously, because there's a lot of people out there that are just miserable and want to take people down.
absolutely.
And it's
With
just
them.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it's unfortunate, but hopefully we'll get past that and in a better place. I'm just so happy you're back, and hopefully can share some new music with us soon. Is that the plan?
Yeah. That is so the plan. That is so the plan. And again, I have to say, I'm letting God steer this. I really,
Yeah.
really have to. And slowly but surely, and I know it's already been 2 decades plus, but still at the end of the day, it's in God's time. And whatever is meant to be, he's guiding that. And and that's my story. I'm sticking to that. No other man will lead this boat. They can't.
Yeah.
And I refuse to allow it to be. So it's in his timing. And yes, I will be back in the studio. My manager and I are going to be working on some things. And I am going to be in the gym along with working on some things. So yes, 2022, we're looking at some beautiful things. Yes, we
Awesome.
are.
I'm really
Yeah.
excited to hear anything
Thank
you
you.
come with. We'll be happy here to support you.
Thank you
Anything
so
we
much.
can do.
Thank
So
you so much. Truly
absolutely.
appreciate it.
I've really enjoyed this interview. Thank you for sharing your story with us. It's been great
Absolutely.
to hear from you.
Mhm.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share?
I truly want to again thank each and every one of my supporters for your support, for your patience, for your understanding. The DJs, all of the interviewers, interviewees, everyone. I'm so thankful for just the support. I really, really am. Um, Pretty much stay tuned. I am slowly but surely building up on my Instagram, trying to get that, I know I need to be more presentable, and I'm working on that as well. And I am so appreciative, and just stay tuned, and thank you so much.